Tonight, my exclusive interview with the most powerful man in world of football. FIFA boss Gianni Infantino defends his decision to give Donald Trump a peace prize and tells me he was wrong to stereotype British fans as violent.
I need to first apologize. It was meant to be more of a light-hearted remark. Also there, we have to be very clear and objective. England did a lot to stamp out violence in football.
But he is unapologetic in his support for the US president, saying he's resolved conflicts and saved thousands of lives. Gianni Infantino also urged fans not to boycott this year's World Cup. You can hear more of our conversation coming up. Plus, we'll bring you up to date on the Epstein files. Nearly 3 million of them have been released. So what have we learned about these three men? As the Rafah crossing opens for the first time in more than a year, we hear from Gazans desperate to leave. Plus,
we're not savage, we're not animals, we're not aliens, we are humans and we are Americans.
In a night of anger at the Grammys, as artists criticize the White House stance on immigration. That's all coming up on The World with me, Yalda Hakim. Good evening. I want to start the programme this evening with a man who wields unmistakable power in the world of sport. I'm referring to Gianni Infantino, head of football's world governing body, FIFA. I spoke to him for nearly an hour today in an exclusive interview. I learnt a few things. He truly believes that Donald Trump is a man of peace and that he deserves the inaugural FIFA Peace Prize. He doesn't believe in boycotts or bans. He thinks they simply cause more hatred. And that football should always sit above politics. He apologises when jokes misfire, but not when his principles are challenged. That's why he had a specific message for British football fans. Just have a listen to our conversation, which begins with him describing the US president as a friend.
I'm fortunate to have really an excellent, a great relationship with President Trump. We met during his first mandate when the United States, Canada and Mexico were bidding to host the World Cup. We actually met for the first time after the announcement, after the decision for them to host. And I found him from the outset very engaging, very motivated to help FIFA, to help the game grow, and and we established this friendship, this relationship.
Do you speak to President Trump every day? How often do you?
No. I don't speak to him every day. No. Every now and then.
I mean, clearly, there is a relationship, and you therefore gave him a peace prize. Why did you feel he was worthy of that peace prize? Why did you think that it was important to give it to him?
And this is our slogan, our motto, FIFA, is football unites the world. So the fact that we unite everyone goes hand in hand with peace. So whatever we can do to help peace in the world, we would be doing it. And for this reason, for some time we were thinking about, we should do something to reward people who do something. And when this whole situation recently, also with Gaza last year, happened, I mean, how many 60,000 people were killed, died in Gaza, and then it stopped. It did stop. Well, we have to stand for peace. We have to support everyone who does something for peace.
There is no doubt that he played an instrumental role when it came to Gaza and the ceasefire there. But of course, the criticism is around Venezuela, for example, plucking Maduro from the capital, taking him to New York, the threats against Greenland. There are accusations that President Trump has also been a destabilizing force.
Yes, but if we speak about the Peace Prize, and And this FIFA Peace Prize actually will be an annual one. So every year we will award a person who engages for peace. If we speak about, what is the main responsibility of a leader of a country? I think it must be to protect first his country and then the people generally. So if you can save one life, it's worse. Then you can discuss about, criticize about what words you use, about threats, about politics. But if you manage to save lives, to protect your people and other people around the world, well, you deserve respect. And you deserve respect, certainly, for these actions.
So you, despite the tensions inside the United States domestically, you think that's one issue, and globally the sort of conflicts that he's resolved is the reason why you gave him this Peace Prize?
Yes, we gave him the Peace Prize because he was instrumental in resolving conflicts, in saving lives, in saving really thousands of lives. And to me, there is nothing more important than stopping killings and stopping this kind of sufferance.
Do you think he should be getting the Nobel Peace Prize?
I think he will get it. And then it will be the second after the FIFA Peace Prize.
Because again, I mean...
Of course he will, but of course he should get it.
But you say that with so much certainty, Gianni.
But because I met Yalda, I met so many leaders around the world in these last 10 years. I meet every president of every country, wherever I go. And, for me, this kind of... It is a force of President Trump to break borders, to just I don't know how to say. He doesn't care. He just puts people in a room together. If you don't speak, I mean, in Ukraine, Russia, we spent 40 years now in Europe. 40 years, just sanctioning Russia, criticizing Russia. How do we think we can solve a war if we don't engage, if we don't speak, if we don't try to understand, if we don't put people in the room? We don't. That's my conviction.
But so, earlier you said that we should re-engage with Russia. Are you saying that you would look at lifting the ban on Russia?
Oh, definitely, we have to, yes. Yes. At least at youth level, for children, at least.
Is this something that you would look at in the near future? Changing the dynamic, despite the criticism?
Yes, I think we have to look at it. I think we have to look at it because this ban has not achieved anything. It has just created more frustration and hatred with girls and with boys. And I feel that having girls and boys from Russia being able to play football games in other parts of Europe would help.
Hence the not wanting the ban on Israel either, for the same reason, because there is that criticism that Russia faced a ban and Israel did not.
Yeah, I mean, the situations were of course different, but ultimately as well, the Israel-Gaza situation got resolved, and again, a ban is a defeat. I even think we should look into our own statutes as FIFA in the future and see whether we should not enshrine in our statutes that we should actually never ban any country from playing football because of the acts of their political leaders.
But don't you think it sends a strong message and a signal if the government of a country, if a regime starts a conflict, brutalizes another people or its own, then putting those types of bans, that the football ban that Russia faces, sends a clear message? Because it is, at the end of the day, part of a nation's identity when you know, they can't play football, for example, on an international level.
But you punish so many people. You punish so many people that don't deserve to be punished, I think. And you know, somebody needs to have the strength and the force to maintain the relations and the ties open.
There are some who are calling for the World Cup in the United States, you know, for fans to ban it. What are your thoughts around that? Because of safety issues, because of the immigration issues that, you know, President Trump's immigration policy, what we're seeing ICE do, for example, there is a lot of concern right now about engaging on that level with the United States.
Let me say that I'm always against, as I'm against bans, I'm against boycotts as well. I think they don't bring anything. Actually, the contrary, they just contribute to create more hatred. But let me ask you, I mean, we are here in England or in the UK. If I'm not mistaken, the most important commercial partner of the UK is the US. 300 billion, 330 billion a year trade volume. Is anyone proposing that the UK should be stopping doing commerce with the US? I didn't hear that. Same as for the Arab countries, by the way, Qatar or others in the past. I never hear this. I never hear there should be a boycott from doing business, or there should be a boycott from political or diplomatic relationships. So why football? Why football? We are actually, by definition, the opposite of anything that is boycotting. We have to unite, we have to bring people together, and thanks God, you know, the vast majority, I mean, these 500 million people who want to come to the World Cup, they think differently, and they just want to come and enjoy and spend time with each other.
Sometimes things you say, even when you're joking, get criticised.
Yes.
Last week in Davos, you made some comments about English football fans and players, comments referencing, you know, arrest of English fans at tournaments.
For the first time in history, also, no Brit was arrested during a World Cup. Imagine, this is something really special.
Do you want to apologise? Do you want to say something to them about this?
Yes. Well, thanks for that. Yes. First of all, I use the word Brit. You know, that no Brit was arrested at the World Cup.
So you offended the whole...
So I offended, you know, the Scots, the Welsh and the Northern Irish, so I need to first apologise to the... I apologise. It was meant to be more of a light-hearted remark to show that actually, you know, the World Cup in Qatar was a celebration, was a peaceful event.
It's been 3 years since your infamous speech in Doha during the World Cup.
Today I feel African. Today I feel gay. Today I feel disabled.
Do you regret it?
I wouldn't call it infamous, I would call it famous speech. No, I don't regret it at all. No, not at all. It was, I think, one of the most watched speeches of that year, probably. And it kind of came out like this. It was not really planned. There was such a criticism about Qatar before the World Cup. And things have objectively changed. Things that took us centuries to change.
Why do you think, I mean, why do you think there was so much criticism?
And I became very famous in the rest of the world after that speech. The voice of the global south, that's fantastic.
But why do you think there was so much criticism about what you said?
I think just because we need to be we need to be negative. I mean, you are in the news field, and you know what I often hear is only bad news are news, but that's so sad. That is so. We should promote good news, not bad news. We should promote peace. We should promote unity.
I want to focus a little bit more on the achievements, and the achievements you've just spoken about in terms of women's football. I've seen firsthand, for example, what you've done for Afghan women, what FIFA has done for Afghan women. You've navigated a regime that makes life very difficult for women at home. How have you managed to do that, and why?
Because that's the right thing to do. It was, and it is, and it will be the right thing to do. We always have to stand for those who need. So in Afghanistan, it was, of course, a very particular situation, and we developed actually women's football in Afghanistan for some years. And then in 2021, when the regime changed again, and everyone left, and these women in Afghanistan who were playing and organizing football were left to themselves. We first helped them to evacuate from Afghanistan, also thanks to the help of many friends in Qatar, in Albania, in other countries. So we got a few hundred of these women out, and they are now living all over the world, and we felt that it was important to give a signal, to help, to assist all these Afghan girls and women who love the game to still be able to somehow represent their country and play football. Now this is, of course, a very difficult balance that you have to strike there, and it took us also a couple of years of discussions with everyone and trying to bring everyone together, and I have to thank everyone who was involved, Khalida Popal, Nadia Nadim, many others. You were part of some discussions as well, and ultimately we managed to not just to help get these girls and women out and help them to have a new life, but also to give them a real purpose in football, to have them coming together, train and play and represent somehow their country with a team that is called Afghan Women United. They trained here in England as well, St. George Park, thanks to the Football Association. They played some games in Morocco, and this is going to grow, and maybe it's just a small, drop in the ocean, but it shows that with the right will, a lot of things are possible, and it gives certainly to these girls and women a lot of pride and a lot of joy.
That was Gianni Infantino speaking to me earlier today, and in the past few minutes, Ukraine sports minister has described Gianni's comments about welcoming Russia back into the fold as infantile and irresponsible. Matvey Bitnyan told Sky News 100 Ukrainian footballers have been killed since Moscow invaded. He went on to say Gianni Infantino's words sound irresponsible, not to say infantile. They detach football from the reality in which children are being killed. As long as Russians continue killing Ukrainians and politicizing sport, their flag and national symbols have no place among people who respect values such as justice, integrity, and fair play. Well, I've been chatting to our sports correspondent Rob Harris about how a man who says he's above politics is so embroiled in it. Have a listen.
But it's a fine line, really, for him, because I think Gianni Infantino sees himself alongside those world leaders in status. In fact, he's better known than many leaders around the world. But in doing so, you do entangle yourself in political situations, particularly when you want to associate yourselves with perhaps some of the victories or the wins you can get in terms of being seen as using football to deliver peace or help to drive peaceful initiatives.
We talked a lot about the upcoming World Cup this summer, calls for a boycott or ban of the games. Ticket prices remain a controversial topic, although he did defend that and say that there are tickets available for about $60, so it is accessible to many fans.
This is a really challenging situation for FIFA because in the United States, you can buy and resell tickets on the secondary market. So if FIFA put every ticket for $1, well, they could just be bought up and sold for thousands, and FIFA would lose out, and there is a FIFA resale platform as well. So they've got to balance out the pricing to help fund football, as Gianni Infantino was saying. The revenue from the Men's World Cup helps to fund youth tournaments, women's tournaments still at this stage as well. Yet it is creating reputational issues for FIFA. As ever, a World Cup does put that central focus on the teams who are there, the teams who aren't there. The calls for a boycott, which haven't really gathered pace in any way. I do think one of the most interesting areas of the interview was when he talked about Russia and about whether they could be returning to international football, because it has been one of the big signature and decisions by the Olympics, the Paralympics, football, other sports in recent years.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing, Rob, that he spoke about was he issued an apology, didn't he, to English football fans because of some remarks he'd made at Davos last week. He says it was a joke.
Yeah, I think this stems from the fact that he's irritated by perhaps some of the criticism of the Qatar World Cup still. And he sees a lot of the criticism often coming from England because of the dominance of the English language around the world. So I think when he was freewheeling at Davos, then he was sort of talking about, well, there was no England fans arrested there. This showed it was a success. It was seen as stereotyping England as a fan base where a lot has improved in terms of the hooliganism.
He talked to me about some of their achievements, especially around women's football, championing Afghan women's football team, Iranian women's football team, North Korean women's football team. It seemed to me like those were the areas he really wants to focus and highlight.
Yeah, it's very much about highlighting how football can be a force for good around the world. In fact, in some ways, you could put FIFA up as being a contender for the Nobel Peace Prize, which has been an objective over the years. It has seen from the organisation its role in uniting the world. And part of his remit at FIFA has been cleaning it up from the Sepp Blatter era and trying to bring football back to Afghanistan, fans into stadiums in Iran, using some of that leverage. But then there has been questions about Gianni Infantino's approach to the job, his association with the rich and the powerful, whether unwisely getting too close to the likes of Vladimir Putin, to Mohammed bin Salman, to Donald Trump, whether needing to show a bit more tact in those relationships rather than going all in. And that's where it creates challenges, whereas he sees it's a way of actually effective tournament delivery and ensuring you can short-circuit things right to the top and ensure that there can't be barriers. And above all, football does remain the most popular sport, and it's other sports that are perhaps facing some of those challenges for relevance.
It's our sports correspondent Rob Harris there. You're watching The World with me, Yalda Hakim, still to come on the programme. Why new revelations from the Epstein files have led to calls for a criminal investigation.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to.
Being a Sky News presenter.
Hello and welcome. Westminster, the heart of British politics.
I'm so sorry about what happened to you.
So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think? It's really unusual. Mornings with Rich and Frost. Let's crack on. Let's get started.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist. A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan has the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra al-Baghir has this report.
And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
I just want to focus now on the Epstein files. Around 2.7 million documents were released late on Friday night. And since then, journalists here at Sky News and around the world have been sifting through them. We've seen a lot of the material before, but some of it is new. Like this video taken in the convicted paedophile's kitchen on his private Caribbean island. And email after email exposing his relationships with those in the highest echelons of power. Just take this man, Peter Mandelson, a former business secretary and UK ambassador to the US. Tonight, there are demands for a police investigation after he was accused of leaking advance notice of a €500 billion bailout for the Eurozone in 2010. And this man, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, who was pictured on his knees over a young woman. Emails show he invited Jeffrey Epstein to Buckingham Palace and that his then-wife, Sarah Ferguson, asked the billionaire for money to pay for her rent. And what about Donald Trump? Well, his name shows up more than 1,000 times. Many of the allegations are unsubstantiated. There is no smoking gun, which is why the US president has claimed he's been exonerated. Have a listen.
I didn't see it myself, but I was told by some very important people that not only does it absolve me, it's the opposite of what people were hoping, you know, the radical left.
Well, that was Donald Trump. Let's bring in our US correspondent, James Matthews. And James, I mean, these files are extraordinary as we sort of go through them and more information comes out. But Donald Trump, you just heard there, you know, talking about essentially being exonerated.
Yeah, hi, Alda. A search for Trump in the Department of Justice's so-called Epstein library, it returns more than 5,000 results. The question, of course, is, do these results, you know, what do they tell us? There are interview notes with Epstein survivors, and they name Donald Trump, including references to Mar-a-Lago, but we have found no allegation of wrongdoing by the president. There is a spreadsheet summary of unverified tips submitted to the FBI. This has been widely circulated online, and that does contain graphic descriptions of abuse. The complaints, however, are unsubstantiated, and they were made over an unspecified time frame. There are names, as you point out, of other high-profile politicians and celebrities in this list as well. President Trump, he said that he's considering legal action over information in the files and reactions to their content, including threatening to sue the comedian Trevor Noah for a joke that he made last night at the Grammy Awards. Trump posted on Truth Social, Noah said incorrectly about me that Donald Trump and Bill Clinton spent time on Epstein Island. Wrong, he wrote. I can't speak for Bill, but I've never been to Epstein Island nor anywhere close. And under tonight's false and defamatory statement, have never been accused of being there until tonight's false and defamatory statement. So the potential, Yalda, for defamation may be one reason why US media organisations have had a tempered, low-key reaction to the latest release of these files. The Department of Justice, it said the documents contain untrue and sensationalist claims against Donald Trump that are, it says, unfounded and false.
And James, you've been speaking to and hearing from some politicians today who've been raising a wide range of issues.
Yeah, I spoke to Suhas Subramaniam, Yalda. He is on the House Oversight Committee, which of course is investigating the Epstein affair. He's not happy. He says, look, OK, we've got 3 million documents and more images, etc., but there are 2.5 million that we have not seen, have not been released. And he reckons there's key information in amongst that because members of this committee, they're in touch with victims. They know some of the testimony that has been given to investigators over the years, and they're not seeing it in this latest tranche, and they're not seeing the names that they think should have been named. But he was interesting. I asked him about Andrew Mountbatten Windsor and about Lord Mandelson. He had a couple of things to say about both.
There's, by their admission, 2.5 million files that they haven't released yet. And some of the things that I was looking for, like draft indictments, witness statements, things that would name names, right, and get the transparency that people wanted, that's the stuff that hasn't been released. And so we are where we are right now, which is we don't have all the evidence. They have broken the law that President Trump himself signed into law about releasing all of the files. And then they've broken our subpoena from our oversight committee. And so we have a lot of questions. We're going to continue to bring in witnesses who knew Epstein or worked with Epstein, and that's going to happen all through February and beyond. We're going to continue to ask the financial institutions and banks for more information, but the more the administration hides, the more we're going to probe.
President Trump says that he is absolved as a result of the latest release. What do you say to that?
I think the president would like for people to think that he's absolved, but the reality is this investigation isn't just about the crimes. It's about the cover-up and how someone could do these terrible crimes and get away with it. And so the president seems to be continuing this cover-up. That's the reality. And so we want to continue to push and make sure that people get the transparency and accountability that they want. We don't want this to happen again, but the more the president hides things, the more we feel like he'll let something like this happen again. So we want to stop that.
Do you think the president is hiding things?
Absolutely. I mean, actions speak louder than words. And the reality is, if they wanted to release all the files and all the information to get people the transparency they needed, they would have done it last March when they said they were going to release the files. But the reality is, once the president saw the files, he didn't want to release them. And so that's clearly a cover-up, and we want to make sure that we get the answers the American people deserve.
What should Andrew Mountbatten Windsor do now?
I want him to continue to come forward. We've asked him multiple times now to come forward and testify before our committee. We'll do it under his terms. But the more he hides, the more files we will find. And so we will find the information regardless of whether he comes to us and testifies. And so it's best for him to come and just tell us what he knows, try to clear his name as best he can. But until then, we're going to continue to probe and find more files. And at some point, I don't know what point, at some point, if we find more evidence of crimes, then the law enforcement, either here in the UK, needs to make a decision about when they should go after him.
Do you think that's a prospect?
I don't know. I'm going to let the evidence do the talking. But certainly if the evidence shows that he committed crimes and it's prosecutorial crimes that he can be sentenced to, then certainly I think law enforcement should apply the law the same way they would anyone else.
And Lord Mandelson, do you think he should come to the United States and give evidence?
It's the same thing. And I don't care if you're Democrat or Republican or Labor, whatever country you're in, whatever title you have, everyone who was involved or committed crimes should be held accountable.
There you go, Yalda. Not for the first time we're having that idea of the involvement of law enforcement floated in the UK and here in the United States. Both men, of course, have had their say of sorts. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, he's vigorously denied the accusations against him. Lord Mandelson, he previously said in a statement, "I was wrong to believe Epstein following his conviction and to continue my association with him afterwards. I apologise unequivocally for doing so to the women and girls who suffered."
James, as always, thank you so much for your reporting. Let's speak now to Dave Arenberg, former state attorney for Palm Beach County in Florida. Thank you so much for joining us here on the programme. I just want to first get your reaction to, what we're hearing. We've seen these sort of 3 million files released, but just hearing there, there are still 2.5 million files that frankly, no one has seen yet.
Correct. And those files contain important information. And I don't know if we're ever going to see it, at least not while Trump is in office, because it contains the internal memos from law enforcement, the FBI, prosecutors' internal memos. We want to know the names of the alleged co-conspirators. And somewhere in those 3 million pages are those names. For the most part, the names have not been released. And until that happens, this controversy is not going away.
So you genuinely think that those 2.5 million files will not see the light of day?
Not while Trump is in office. He does not want to release them. And his number 2 person at the Department of Justice said that it's done. The releases are over. They are relying on a very broad interpretation of privileges to prevent the release. Now, a court may order some releases, and I can see maybe a few more documents being released, but all of them, no. I don't think that's going to happen until Trump's out of office. He's going to appeal all the way to the Supreme Court to try to prevent the full releases.
Talk us through these 3 million files, because it's not so much what we can see, it's also what we can't see in terms of the redactions.
Well, in there are important memos, like they're called 302s. That's the memos that the FBI agents write down after they interview a victim or a witness, and we'd love to see them. There are a few of them in there, but not the real important stuff we want to see that would indicate who did what, allegedly, and what happened, allegedly. These are all really important. So there's so much more out there. We're just being tantalized by some names, but clearly there are millions of documents and so many names that are being kept aside. And, in the recent production, although we saw some very famous Brits mentioned, including Andrew, the real thing here is that meeting, I thought, that Andrew tried to schedule in 2010 with Epstein in secret at Buckingham Palace. This was after Epstein was a registered sex offender, after he'd been convicted of some serious crimes.
So do you believe then, the calls and pressure for Andrew Mountbatten Windsor to testify, should continue? And should that also include Lord Mandelson?
Oh, I think so. I think that the releases we've seen, they generate more questions than answers. And some of those pictures are really terrible. And so they should testify. I mean, I think the survivors are owed that. They've been let down by so many politicians, prosecutors, and leaders for so long that perhaps what they deserve now is radical transparency. I mean, I don't think anything's going to give them full justice because Epstein is dead, but they could get a measure of closure.
And just talk us through the victims, because sometimes in all of this, it feels like, the victims are not forgotten, but they're certainly not the centerpiece of all of this. Some of the victims you're talking to and some of the things that are being said, how are they feeling about the release of this sort of volume of these files and also what's not being released?
Well, the reports are that the survivors are upset because of 2 things. First, not enough has been released. And number 2, too much has been released, namely their identities. There has been a snafu by the Trump administration in producing the names and images of some of these victims, and that was not supposed to happen. Now, I do not think that was intentional. I think that was just a mistake. But it's a mistake that needs to be fixed. So right now they're thinking at the same time there's too many documents that have been revealed, and yet there are millions of documents that still need to and have not.
And also just talk us through this tension between Congress and Democrats in Congress who are pushing for these other files to be released and what the president ultimately wants.
I think that this issue is going to contribute to a big Democratic win in November. And when that happens, the Democrats will have hearings on Epstein. This story is not going away. They're going to actually delve deep and call people in front of them with subpoenas under oath. And they're going to try to pass new laws that hold members of the Trump administration in contempt or try to impeach them for their actions and inactions. So this is a high-stakes ballgame, and Trump is not doing himself or his party any favors by continuing to play hide the ball here or slow walk the releases. It just makes matters worse. What they should do is just rip off the Band-Aid, just take their lumps, and then move on. Instead, it's a drip, drip, drip that's really hurting the president.
And, you know, you said that it's unlikely for as long as President Trump is the president of the United States that we'd see these other 2.5 million files. But do you think that the ongoing pressure coming from his base, the MAGA base, and the kind of quarters that you're talking about could change or shift the dial on that?
It could shift a little bit where you will see some releases, but I do not think you're going to see the full Epstein files as long as Trump is in the White House. I think you may see some more, especially if the courts get involved and the Democrats win control of the House. So this is not it. This is not over. But if you're waiting to see all the names of the alleged co-conspirators, you're going to have to wait a long time.
Dave Arenberg, really fascinating talking to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
This is The World with me, Yalda Hakim. Next up on the programme, Israel reopens the Rafah border crossing between Gaza and Egypt almost 2 years after it was closed.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up. Being a Sky News journalist. Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is.
First off, just the scale of what we're looking at.
Our data shows it's been happening. Question is why it hasn't been stopped.
Let's turn our attention to Gaza, where the Rafah border crossing has been reopened for the first time in more than a year. Among the first people to cross into Egypt for urgent medical treatment was Ahmed, a young man with a bullet lodged in his head. Our Middle East correspondent Adam Parsons has this report.
It took nearly a day of waiting, but now the first people have gone across the Rafah crossing, proof it is finally operating again. A crucial link between two worlds. On one side Egypt, on the other, the devastation of Gaza. It's been more than a year since anyone made this journey. Now a handful have left Gaza. And these are the people who got permission to cross, gathering in Khan Yunis ahead of their journey, all of them in need of urgent medical treatment, each allowed to bring parents or two companions on the journey. Ahmed was among them. He has a bullet lodged in his head and he was travelling with his father.
He needs a major operation. The doctors say there's a 10% chance of success. Ahmed still has bone and iron fragments in his head. And we say to those concerned, to the World Health Organization and to the rest of the world, to help Ahmed get out of Gaza.
There was a sense of relief among this gathering, a feeling of hope that may have been revived. But this group is but a tiny fraction of the overall number of people who need help. This is Lana, suffering from the same devastating kidney disorder that killed her brother. Her mother is desperate for her to leave to get treatment abroad.
I wish she would go back to how she was before. I wish she would talk to me as she used to tell me, "Mum, I'm strong, I'm brave."
Her fear is that Lana will die without help. The trickle of people given permission to use Rafah so far is dwarfed by those who want to cross. Aid trucks are still not allowed to use the crossing, neither are foreign journalists. But this is, at least, a small sign of progress. Sam, this is the second phase of the peace deal that we're now into. How confident are you that progress will now speed up? Because a lot of people feel that it's getting bogged down.
I mean, it's an incredibly complex and incredibly fragile moment and set of circumstances that the people of Gaza are facing. But the stakes are too high. We have to be determined and we have to make sure that this works, because if we fall back again into a cycle of conflict, the one thing that we do know, based on past experiences, is this is likely to be worse than the previous phases of conflict. So, I mean, we have no choice but to make sure that this works.
In Gaza, that is the challenge, to find slivers of optimism and to hold them close. Just a few people have used the Rafah crossing so far, but those are steps in the right direction. Adam Parsons, Sky News, Jerusalem.
This is The World with me, Yalda Hakim. Next up, art and politics collide at the Grammys as some of the biggest voices in music hit out at ICE.
There's a fresh look to your news from 10 on Sky News.
It's a new show called The Wrap, every night of the week.
We'll still bring you the day's biggest stories,
but with more lively debate,
more in-depth commentary,
and more of what you need to know.
Plus a look at what's making tomorrow's headlines.
The Wrap.
Everything wrapped up for you from 10 on Sky News.
This is how you travel when the mafia wants to kill you.
He's almost given up his own freedom, but that's the price he's willing to pay.
Here, they don't just arrest and Ndrangheta mafia members, they also live among them.
Time after time, I've seen the devastating impact of extreme weather and climate change.
We don't have much snow at the moment.
They've had a warm spring and exceptionally hot summer, and that means they're expecting to lose more than 3 times the amount of ice than they usually do.
Flames are still forcing people from their homes and leaving many questioning their futures.
Here was my life. We have nothing. I can't say anything, it's so sad.
This disaster is testing the resolve of everyone on this island.
The only way out now is by boat.
Everything you see is devastated, and the misery being felt by people living here is repeated in towns and villages across Central Europe. Sky News, get the full story first.
Turkey is burying its dead. The loss is profound.
Whole families died in this collapse, generations wiped out. The violence has penetrated the heart of the city rather than being contained to the estates around the edge, and that speaks to the level of anger being felt here.
In Sweden, police have seized a lethal stash. This is just a small sample of the deadly arsenal taken off the streets.
This is an example of an advert, really. Anyone of any age could say, I'll do that for £1 million, and then have to go and shoot someone.
Yes.
I'm Siobhan Robbins, Sky's Europe correspondent based here in Berlin.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to.
Being a Sky News presenter.
Hello and welcome. Westminster, the heart of British politics.
I'm so sorry about what happened to you.
So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think? It's really unusual. Mornings with Richard Frost. Let's crack on. Let's get started.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist. A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan had the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now? I just want to show you some images now of a Portuguese-flagged cargo ship colliding with a US oil tanker off the Yorkshire coast. This was the moment the Solong crashed into the Stena Immaculate near the Humber estuary last March. Both vessels were carrying flammable goods and were engulfed in huge flames as their cargo caught fire. A crew member of the Solong died in that crash. 59-year-old Russian captain of the Solong, Vladimir Motin, was found guilty of manslaughter by gross negligence today. The body of the Filipino crew member who was on the bow of his ship during the collision was never found. And the biggest stars in music came together last night for one of the biggest events for the industry, and there was one villain, ICE. Winners at this year's Grammy Awards hid out at the ongoing immigration enforcement operations in the US. Bad Bunny, Billie Eilish and British singer-songwriter Olivia Dean all used their acceptance speeches to voice their support for immigrants. Just have a listen.
Being a history person, I see over the centuries the same things happening over and over again, slave catchers, all of the history that is kind of in our DNA. To see it unfolding in this way right now, it's both depressing but also like, well, if not now, when do we speak up?
Before I say thanks to God, I'm gonna say eyes out. We're not savage, we're not animals, we're not aliens, we are humans and we are Americans.
I guess I want to say I'm up here as a granddaughter of an immigrant. Yeah, I'm a product of bravery and I think those people deserve to be celebrated. No one is illegal on stolen land.
With the immigration situation, you know, I'm Latino and I gotta keep supporting my people.
even though if I'm not in their situation, it's our people.
Immigrants built this country, literally. So this is for them, for all children of immigrants.
Well, that's it for tonight. We'll, of course, keep you across all the developments on the Epstein files this week and bring you the latest from Iran too. Of course, you can also watch my interview with Gianni Infantino, that exclusive I did today, on YouTube. The show will be back at 9 p.m. tomorrow. The Wrap with Anna Botting is up next. Good night.